a Buckeye and get your super chats in, get your questions in at the end of the show if you want them read on the air. But wait till I'm done with my segments and then we'll get to it. I'll give you a warning when I'm kind of wrapping up. But if you enter them now, I will just I'll just miss them and they'll get buried. But first off, tonight on the show, we've got a big decision tomorrow with your Quen Guilford. And he was going to make his decision a couple of weeks ago originally. He started off as a heavy Buckeye lean in this cycle. Ole Miss then came with a pretty enticing offer, and along with some money, there's a clear route to playing time. It's an exciting offense. Lane Kiffin runs a fun offense, and there's less competition to get to the top. And as decision day was looming, he postponed it, and that's a good thing for the Buckeyes because it was looking like it was going to be Ole Miss that day. Well, we have rescheduled that, and he is now going to make his decision tomorrow at 5:30. So we're going to go live here at 5 o'clock for tomorrow's show and cover that like we always do. Quen Guilford was a 3-star guy. The last time we talked about this, in the most recent update, he's now become a 4-star as he deserves, both in the industry ranking and the 247 composite, which is extremely well-deserved. At 6'2", 190, the number one player in Indiana. Last year, 35 receptions, 550 yards, 3 touchdowns. So not stats that are going to wow you, but he's long, smooth, great body control, sudden for a guy that big. And he's fast, not a burner, but he's fast. And he's worked out in person with Brian Hartline several times at Ohio State camps. And the fact that Hartline wants him to join a class that already has 4 wide receivers, good enough for me to be excited about. Currently in that class, the wide receivers, Chris Henry Jr., Caden Dixon-Wyatt, 2 dudes from Mater Dei, and then you got Brock Boyd out of South Lake Carrollton, Texas, and Jaden Ricketts from Pataskala, Ohio. So tomorrow, 5 o'clock, that's going down. Be here. The official JUCK prediction is the Buckeyes going with the Bucks to land their 5th wide receiver. Now, Guilford has sparked a little bit of irritation amongst some Buckeye fans. Irritation that, they're going to pay 5 wide receivers and not pay for a guy in the trenches. It's not really like that, man. I mean, like, dudes are taking a big discount to play for Brian Hartline. Not the top of the board guys, but when we talk about guys like Jaden Ricketts, Quen Guilford, Brock Boyd, those dudes are making the class minimum. And I understand it's frustrating by comparison when we look at Hartline continually make do with what he has and be able to overcome any kind of, financial gap that another school might have. But that's Brian Hartline, man. He's just one of a kind in college football, not just at Ohio State. But now with your Quen Guilford, Buckeyes trying to get back up to 21 commitments, which is where they were at yesterday morning before Jacob Weatherspoon elected to flip his commitment to North Carolina and Bill Belichick. I did a little 6-minute video on that explaining that yesterday, but if you didn't see it, Jacob Weatherspoon, safety out of Avon, who was committed to Tim Walton, the cornerbacks coach, as a nickel in this class, 4-star, top 125 overall guy. On Tuesday's show, I was just talking about all these guys in the class, and I said, we've heard like no buzz about Weatherspoon at all, other than a couple of rumors. And one was that he was transferring high schools that I had heard here around the city. People at Hoban were saying that he was going to transfer to Hoban. I reached out to him. He told me that was not true, and turned out he was telling the truth. The second rumor was that he had visited Penn State without letting the coaches know. And I reached out to him about that. He said that was a garbage story, quote. And since he was truthful about the first one, I took his word for the second one about Penn State. Well, since my update yesterday, it seems more and more clear that he probably did take that visit. In addition to that, he denied taking that visit to the staff. I do have a correction from that video I did yesterday. If you saw it, I mentioned during that show that Wednesday morning, Devin Sanchez tweeted something that not a lot of people understood. He tweeted, crazy to be a top athlete in your class and not want to go to a top school because of the depth chart. Just say you're scared of competing for a spot. And at that time, I was unclear who he was talking to or who he was talking about. And then the Weatherspoon news dropped. So naturally I assumed, okay, now it makes sense. And that's what I said on that show yesterday. I was incorrect. He was responding to what turned out to be a phony graphic that somebody made, like a Hayes Fawcett graphic with Tyler Atkinson's picture and a quote saying, I chose Texas because at Georgia, I'd have to wait till I was a junior or senior to play. Also, Texas is better for my brand, which is just a hysterical troll. But apparently that's what Devin was responding to. Kind of irresponsible for me to say that on the show without knowing for sure. So I apologize to Devin and you guys. You live and learn. I'll learn from that one. I shouldn't have done that. But as for the loss of Spoon, not a huge loss for the class other than wasting everybody's time. He's a solid player. He needed a couple years of development. Despite his lofty 125 overall ranking, I pegged him on Tuesday's show, and I've always thought he's about a top 250 guy, a solid player, but clearly wasn't all the way bought in on Ohio State. So better now that he splits before he wastes any more of anybody's time, and some pointing to the lack of paying him with more frustration. I'm totally on board with paying freshmen, even substantially, when they're the kind of dude that commands that kind of money. Jacob Weatherspoon was not, particularly if he's visiting other schools and fibbing about it. If I up somebody's pay, and it's a guy like Jacob Weatherspoon, now everybody else who's kind of on that level is going to want their pay up. And I can't really run a business like that under a salary cap. And I wouldn't, even if I didn't have a salary cap, I can do that with special players and guys that are totally bought in. Maybe somebody like Kari Wilder, who all of a sudden, I think we can all anticipate with the buzz about Kari recently, that he's caught the attention of a lot of other schools and probably going to start getting some stupid offers to try to flip him off his commitment. And if he's remaining all the way in, a guy like that, maybe you go to him and say, hey, I want to give you some more money right now and just get out ahead of it. It won't be anywhere near as much as the stupid offers that are going to come in for him, but it buys a little more loyalty from him that they were going to give this to me before anybody came with these huge offers. But things like that, as far as North Carolina coming in the end and offering more money to a guy that's already been wavering in Weatherspoon, that's not going to get me to up my offer. So while I understand the frustration when it comes to not paying for some battles, that doesn't apply to all battles. And that doesn't apply to all freshmen. It certainly doesn't apply to this one for me. But as far as Ohio State goes, there are no obvious answers as to where Tim Walton can turn here to fill that spot. And remember, last cycle, to go along with number 1 overall corner Devin Sanchez, he got Jordan Woods. Jordan Woods, if you haven't seen his film, it's awesome for one. He's a 6'4" outside linebacker looking corner. I'd be shocked if he ever ends up playing corner at Ohio State. Like him as a player, I don't know where you put him. But essentially, you got yourself one outside corner in 2025 in Devin, one in 2026 in Jordan Thomas, and the Bucks now heavily on the prowl for at least one nickel, and they wanted another outside corner as well. Now they're stuck with one. But we will do a position wish list next week based on roster needs. And we got to remember, still the possibility here that we do see some schools coming down the end of the cycle here that promises aren't being kept. And that may lead to Ohio State being able to get a chance to get some decommitments on board with them. But I think in a lot of cases, we're going to see that some of those guys were demanding pretty large paychecks, and maybe that's why they went to the school in the first place. And now the school who committed to paying them realizes they can't get away with what they were going to try to do to pay them, and those guys end up decommitting. I can't wait to see this unfold. Under these new rules, you had a bunch of schools who were out there guaranteeing payment through their NIL collectives, and those deals now being shot down. Well, now what are those schools going to do? They can't do that with NIL anymore, and they don't have room, assuming most of them probably don't have much room under the revenue share cap. They probably already had that budgeted out. You got the CDC, who are arguing on behalf of the schools. That's the enforcement arm. And then you got the lawyers arguing on behalf of the plaintiffs in the House case. And they're arguing over, should this collective money be allowed to go through? And it's probably going to end up going to the judge. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said at Media Days that if collectives are allowed to do what they were attempting to do, which is essentially creating gigs for the players that pass the clearinghouse to funnel money to the players, he said the cap would be much softer. And of course it would be much softer. It would be total nonsense. It would be totally pointless. All of this would have been. But we'll continue to see how this goes here. We'll see nothing but these huge offers consistently for freshmen if that's allowed to go through, if you're allowed to use the collective like that. But it also opens up Ohio State to be able to do the same thing, which they have not been. Ohio State hasn't been promising any NIL deals. All the money they're promising is from the cap. The question is, even if they're allowed to, will they, and how effectively will they? We don't know. We don't know at all. They've totally changed the structure. But as for corner, I was listening to my buddies last night, Cleveland Mike and Terry, the world famous Buckeyes show. You guys should check it out. They're my guys. They're really good. I think both of them have been on the post-game show with me here before. But I was so tempted to text them last night to patch me in on the show. They were debating Indiana and this cream puff schedule. Maybe we'll get to that at the end. But C. Mike asked the chat, how do you grade Walt's class? And that is currently tough, man. He's got one player outside the top 100. Now, Jordan Thomas was Walt's number one target, in my opinion. So I consider Jordan Thomas a huge win because I'm going to go ahead and trust Walt's evaluation on what he can do with a player versus anybody else's. So if that's his number one guy, and I think it is, you get an A+ for that guy. However, you had a ready-made class right here in Ohio we talked about for a year with 2 of the top 10 cornerbacks in the country in Ohio, in addition to Jacob Weatherspoon, 3 in the top 125. It just sucks, man. You went 0 for 3. You went 0 for 4 with the secondary guys in the state of Ohio that had Ohio State offers. The ones that Ohio State was pursuing, if you add in Quen Guilford, who went to Clemson. Now, Matt Guerrieri, he was a safety, Quen Guilford. Matt Guerrieri made up for that one in spades with his safety haul with Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell. How is Walt going to make up for it with these guys? I can't wait to find out. But when we look at the corners next year, who's going to be in the room, I kind of feel like Jermaine Matthews might end up going to the NFL. IGB will be gone, which leaves you nickel Miles Lockhart, Aaron Scott, Devin Sanchez, Bryce West, Jordan Woods, and Jordan Thomas. Now, that's short on numbers and depth, but some premier top-of-the-line talent, and I'll take premier top-of-the-line talent any day over the deepest room in the country with just good talent at the top. So, interesting stuff there. We had a great show Tuesday night, guys, our first evening live show here, and I got some excellent feedback from you guys about the quality of the signal, which, as you may or may not know, has been our biggest hiccup for live shows around here. A lot of the reason that I couldn't do it, it was really embarrassing. I used to just get knocked off, or the screen would black out for 4 minutes at a time, and people would be waiting in the chat for me. It was just humiliating. But anyway, I don't know what we're going to do with the format moving forward, but if you like these evening lives and you would like to see more of them, maybe some every week, let me know, but not in this chat, in the comments after the video underneath, if you would like these, or maybe what days are good for you. And I'll try to do whatever I can to appease whatever you guys like, or when most of you can meet, because that's the most important part that I love about these live shows. In addition, let's please like the show today and share it with a friend. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, let everyone know this is a 5-star show. We've already established it's everyone's 4th to 7th favorite college football show, which puts it squarely in the top 32. And as we know, that's 5-star range. If you've not yet subscribed, that is the currency. That's what people behind these microphones need from all of us who enjoy watching. So please subscribe to this show and all the shows that you enjoy. That's how you let YouTube and sponsors know it's a quality show that you like. Next up, some potential news coming to make our college football Saturday maybe a little worse. If you asked Ohio State fans 10 years ago, who is the most hated man in college football media, I think most would have said Mark May. Mark May made a living off of trashing Ohio State football and Ohio State fans. And it's kind of ironic that his partner and co-host, Lou Holtz, became eventually the target of Ryan Day's most famous tirade. But if you asked Ohio State fans today, who's the most hated man in college football media, obviously there's a clear number one, and that's Ohio and Desmond Howard of ESPN's College Game Day, who's just unbearable to listen to. I think he'd be unbearable to listen to even if he wasn't incredibly unprofessional, because he adds no value as a football analyst. He's just like a headline watcher that just regurgitates things he reads, doesn't even read the whole article, just the headline. Then you got the ridiculous homerism that even Nick Saban called him out for, asking him, do you ever pick against Michigan? And I don't know how Michigan fans feel about this guy. I'd be embarrassed by his antics, particularly the Heisman stage. The thing he did with CJ Stroud was just embarrassing as hell. And he kind of conducts himself like a walking, talking Michigan Twitter account, just a total cringe factory. But he's definitely up there for most hated, because if you want to watch College Game Day, and a lot of people do, you can't avoid him. But there's another guy who's not too far away for me. You just got to kind of go out of your way to see his content, not as prominently front and center on a show that you might want to watch. And that's Dave Portnoy of Barstool, an East Coast kid who went to Michigan, grown a behemoth of a sports media company in Barstool. And now he's even more obnoxious than he's ever been. He's always lived to troll Ohio State, particularly the last 4 years. And Portnoy, very hated amongst Ohio State folk. Another thing Ohio State folks are getting pretty darn sick of, big noon kickoff. Buckeyes constantly stuck with big noons, been a huge topic of discussion all offseason. And leading into big noon kickoff is Fox's version of game day, the big noon. And some people like it better than game day. You got Urban Meyer, Ohioan. You got Mark Ingram. You got Brady Quinn, Ohioan. Charles Woodson, another Ohioan who went to Michigan and won a Heisman like Ohioan Desmond Howard. Ohio runs the world. But Fox recently canceled a ton of their FS1 content. And I don't know what that is because I watched absolutely none of it if it's not live sports. But they are now intending on putting some of Barstool's content on FS1. And in addition to that, they want Dave Portnoy on Big Noon. And they somehow think that's going to make people tune in. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't, half the Barstool fans don't even like this guy. So unless they think he's someone that is so, I feel like that guy kind of was a rising star for a point, and it has dropped quite a bit, man. Like the pizza reviews were the peak. They were the pinnacle, the beginning of those. And then it's just been downhill ever since. But there are some people that can be kind of annoying and like a troll, but people want to tune in to see what they say next, even if it makes them mad. I don't think he's that. I don't think he can carry that. They're definitely going to lose a lot of Ohio State fans who probably used to watch a lot of that big noon before those Ohio State games, which make up like half of their games that they show. But they think that he's going to be a draw like Pat McAfee. Now, I don't listen to Pat McAfee, not because I don't like him. I just don't listen to podcasts like that. But my middle son really loves him. So I hear it in the background a lot. And he just comes off like a genuine, good, funny guy. Played in the NFL, so it makes sense that he's there. Played at West Virginia, makes sense that he's there. A lot of things make sense about McAfee on College Game Day. And the thing that him and Saban got going on is pretty fun to watch too. There is nothing that makes sense about Dave Portnoy being on Big Noon. Unless they're trying to make him be like to Urban how that is with McAfee and Saban. I just don't see that working. Nothing makes sense to me about this at all. He knows very little about college football. He knows about Michigan. Nothing wrong with that. Plenty of Ohio State fans just care about Ohio State. But I just don't see this guy carrying a college football conversation. His entire shtick is just obnoxious. Like, that's his shtick. Does that sell on a college football show? Or is he going to try to be serious? Is he going to try to tighten it up and be professional and serious? If he tries that, I think that's even worse because I don't think he has the chops to do it. But neither does Desmond, and somehow he's made a heck of a career about it. He does have a Heisman, though. I hope this flops hard for Fox. I won't be tuning in either way because I will be doing a live pregame show like I do every Saturday during the season, talking Ohio State, talking all the biggest games of the weekend. And unlike Dave Portnoy, I know college football. It's the only sport I love and the only one I talk about. I encourage you to join me Saturday's game day here, and we will talk about everything in more detail without the obnoxiousness. So look forward to seeing you guys then. Here we go. Let me read Rod's comment here. It just flipped up. Here's Rod. I like Barstool's content, but Portnoy doesn't bring any valuable insight. He's just a fanboy troll. And I think that that's what a lot of Barstool fans feel. Honestly, like Portnoy's just not interesting. He's just a troll. Now, this is interesting to me when we look across the roster of these 2025 Buckeyes. Obviously, a team that's lost a ton of starters. I want you to pretend for a second that you're not an Ohio State fan. You don't really know the Ohio State roster, but you watched them win a national championship last year. And I'm just going to describe to you going into 2025, here's what this team lost. They lost essentially their entire defense. You're replacing 2 defensive ends who went to the NFL, 2 defensive tackles who went to the NFL, your captain, Blocko, Mr. Everything linebacker who went to the NFL, cornerback number 1 who went to the NFL, safety who went to the NFL. On offense, their quarterback and wide receiver who went to the NFL, tight end, 2 running backs who went to the NFL, and 4 of the starters from game number 1 in 2024 are now gone. That sounds ridiculous. Like it almost sounds like you made it up. It's way too much. Normally, what happens in years like this is you go into spring and you've got position battles raging everywhere. Then you go into fall and you got a better idea as to who's leading in most of those groups, but they're still pretty tight and kind of can maybe flip one way or the other. That's generally how these things happen when you have this much turnover. Because usually in this situation, you've got a lot of guys fighting for positions and neither of them maybe have played a lot. They haven't shown what they can do on the football field outside of special teams, garbage time. Their coaches are narrowing this down based on practice. And this is one of the reasons that the national media types are not too high on Ohio State. Ohio State not being disrespected in any way that I've seen, but I've yet to see anybody really on a public platform pick Ohio State to repeat. I've seen a lot of people that think Texas is better. Texas is going to win in the shoe. Penn State's going to win the national championship. Clemson, Georgia's better. It just feels like a lot of doubt with Ohio State that many other teams aren't getting, particularly Texas in a very similar situation, because they're going off the conventional wisdom that there are a lot of inexperienced guys who are now going to be stepping up into big time starting roles. The thing is, when we look at this roster heading into fall, there really aren't a lot of starting position battles raging at all. There aren't a lot of inexperienced new starters. And that's because so many of these guys have actually played a ton of football. There were very obvious choices to replace a lot of these starters that left. So as we are now just a few weeks out from camp, I wanted to go over some of these positions and position battles that we will be keeping an eye on as we start here in a few weeks. And let's start with the offensive line. Projected starting lineup: transfer from Rice, Ethan Onyanwa, the obvious starter at left tackle. That's an elite portal addition, and that guy looks like he's going to be awesome. I sure hope he is. But next to him, Luke Montgomery at left guard, Carson Hinsman at center, Tegra Shabola, your only returning starter, at right guard. And then it would seem like it's got to be Austin Saraveld at right tackle, because Ryan Day told us Austin Saraveld is going to be starting. That's the only spot left for him. Ryan Day also only mentioned Austin Saraveld as a starter, the only single guy. And that says a lot to us. So if he's one of your top five guys, they want the top five guys on the field. They want the sixth best guy coming in next. What's that mean? It means you're cross-training a couple guys. So if your tackle goes down, you aren't just bringing in your next best tackle. An example of that would be last year against Oregon, edition number 1. Josh Simmons goes down, you bring in the next best tackle, Zen Mahalski. This year, they're doing it different, which is what they did at the end of the year last year. If your tackle goes down this year, you're saying, who's the next best guy? Now, he may be a guard that can't play tackle. Well, that's okay. I've got 2 starting guards that I've cross-trained. So I can put one of them out at tackle and bring in the guard, just like you did with Donovan Jackson last year, moving him from left guard to left tackle after the Zen Mahalski injury against Nebraska. He'd have been benched anyway, and they'd have done the same thing. But you're bringing in your 6th best guy. So when we look at these 5 guys in that projected starting lineup of Ethan Onyanwa, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, Tegra Shabola, Austin Saraveld, who's the 5th guy? Who's the lowest guy on that ladder to you? To me, ironically, the 5th best guy, the only returning starter, Tegra right now, would be lowest on my list. Of course, we're not watching practice, haven't seen everything for quite a while now, 6 months. But that is just what I would project here if you were to ask me to project for the sake of an argument as to a position battle. So do we have a candidate outside that top 5 that can potentially jump in to the top 5? I would say the top 2 guys up for that would be Ian Moore and Phillip Daniels, 2 tackles, which means if either one of them jumped in to that top 5, let's say Tegra was number 6, he comes out at guard. Both those guys can only play tackle, which means Austin Saraveld is now the right guard, and one of them is at right tackle. Austin, your Swiss Army knife. But that's really the only potential battle I see going on here that is a realistic battle, is for that number 5 spot. And even then, I don't think it's really going down like that. I think we've got a solid starting 5 here. I don't think it's going to change, but it'll be really interesting to watch. If you think there's another guy out of that starting 5 that doesn't belong there or that might be the sixth, let me know in the comments. But when we look at that offensive line, man, that feels really damn solid. And when we talk about experience, despite replacing 4 starters from game 1 last year, the injuries that you dealt with, those guys that are playing got the most important experience of the year against the best competition with Luke, Austin, Tegra, Carson. They were playoff dogs. Then you add an elite portal guy in Ethan Onyanwa. However, if I'm the national media, all I'm seeing is Ohio State is replacing 4 starters on the offensive line. I've seen it characterized like that in a ton of publications. So that doesn't help for the argument of what you're expecting out of Ohio State. Moving to tight end, you lose G. Scott and you bring in Max Clare. So you got a better version in the same role, but expanded. And then everything else stays the same, but a year older and a year bigger and a year stronger. Will Kazmarek, the favorite to be that true blocking tight end, as Keenan Bailey has told us, he's the best blocking tight end in the nation. Jelani has improved a lot in his blocking. He'll get a bigger role this year. Bennett Christian, also a very good blocker. But I think we'll see a pretty healthy rotation and a whole lot of experience, but unquestionably tight end a better room in 25 than it was in 24. But again, if I'm on the outside looking in and they got to replace senior tight end G. Scott, that's another one they got to replace. Let's head to the running back room. Buckeyes replacing Quinshawn and Travion. And this is one that I keep seeing people point to as a really big deal. When we talk about experience, CJ Donaldson has a ton of experience, a ton of P4 experience. And this will be his best year of his career with his new version of himself at 6'2", 227 instead of 6'2", 243. You got second year James Peoples ready to carry the load. And freshman Bo Jackson is a plug and play. If there was no CJ Donaldson, I would feel every bit as confident about this running back room with James Peoples and Bo Jackson. If there was no James Peoples, I'd feel only slightly as good, but I'd feel fine with CJ Donaldson and Bo Jackson being the 2-man crew. Either one of those works because to me, Bo is the most valuable back on this roster and he's ready right now. And for those 2 starters, I think their biggest battle is ball security. Give Locke a reason to put Bo in, buddy. Just give him a reason. The only battle this fall at running back is for that number 4 spot, in my eyes, between Isaiah West, Turbo, and Sam Williams-Dixon. And Isaiah and Turbo both missed spring. Isaiah with an injury, Turbo wasn't here yet. Isaiah is a complete back. He's a total dude. The single most puzzling lack of recruitment and underranked guy in the Buckeyes class of 2025 to me. I'm totally convinced he will be the clear number 4 and will at some point be an Ohio State favorite for his running style, refusal to go down, personality too. He's another Emeka Egbuka, the 30-year-old brain and maturity with the crazy work ethic, and really excited for him. Really excited to see Turbo and what capacity they use him this year. We'll see something out of him. Moving on to wide receiver, which is just fun to talk about. There's no battles for the top 3, obviously, with JJ, Carnell, and Innis. This room is better. It's better than last year with JJ in year 2. Just that alone. Carnell in year 3. And Innis, he's not super experienced on the field, but he's a grown man now. And he's been around the program, leadership council guy as a sophomore. He's just got the goods. He's got the right stuff. Looks quicker than ever. He's leaner. I think he's going to have a really good year. The big battles below these guys. You got Bryson Rogers, Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter. Those 3 guys, all awesome. And it's never not exciting to talk about the wide receivers at Ohio State, but this crew, like you can even go down to number 7 with Phillip Bell and 8 with electric slot guy Des Jones, a couple of freshmen. Those dudes could be playing anywhere. And then you got the craziest project ever in BP Miller, which who knows what he can become. But I'm excited to see. But that battle for that second 3, be fun to watch. Bryson Rogers, Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter all bring something different to the table. Bryson, look, he said I'm the best route runner in the country. I feel like he's pretty damn close. I mean, normally that's not something that pops out to you, but gosh, he is so crisp and smooth the way he moves. He's fast. He's mature. He knows everything, got a great attitude. Mylan Graham is a freak athlete. Crazy play waiting to happen anytime he touches the ball. First round talent, no doubt. And then you got Quincy Porter, the freshman, with just The catch radius is incredibly huge. He understands how to use his big size, and he's strong. Again, another first round talent. But as a whole, wide receiver room better, no question. Which brings us finally on the offense to quarterback. None of these nationals are acknowledging that this is really a battle with Lincoln Keenholz and Julian saying, Ryan Day, of course, is. He's got 3 quarterbacks on the roster. He can't afford to lose one. And I believe it's a battle, too, as in they're truly on equal footing walking into spring, as in the best guy's going to play. That's what a battle is. I just think there's a clear guy who's going to win the battle, and that's going to be Sayin. I don't have any question about that at all. I think the only question is, do we see at some point Lincoln to try to keep him engaged or to maybe take advantage of him down in goal line situations? Do we see him coming in and playing some, or do we see him just being a true backup? Maybe using the role that they created for Devin Brown with Kyle McCord, using Lincoln for that, which would actually be effective. Now, Devin Brown, look, do you remember heading into that year with the Devin and McCord battle, how the media was pumping up what a great athlete Devin was? They were making it sound like Devin was Lincoln. Now, Lincoln is legitimately a plus athlete, like a legit measurables, all of it. Devin's not. Devin's just a normal dude. Kyle just a little unathletic. So by comparison, sure, he's better. But the fact that they created a package like that for Devin Brown and people were talking about him like he was Braxton Miller was truly hilarious when you finally saw him out there moving like that. And we're like, wait a second. But that's it, man. Lincoln, a legit athlete, plus athlete, and you could see a potential package for him. But I think Sam wins the job, and that is offense. So we got battles at quarterback, and that's really it for the starters. And that's essentially maybe decided. And as far as experience, the line, experienced, tight end, experienced, wide receiver, experienced, running back, not a ton of experience, but also the position where experience matters the least. And then quarterback, this is all about the quarterback. Let's go to the defense, starting with the tackles. Caden McDonald, experienced. Edric Houston, he's very green. The battles behind them, you got at one tech, Eric Mensah, Will Smith Jr., both very green. Will Smith Jr. obviously got the lead there, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some Eric Mensah at some point. Behind Edric at 3 tech, you've got Ty Malone, Jason Moore, Jarquez Carter of the 3. Obviously, Carter's a freshman, but Ty Malone has played more than Jason Moore. But a lot of green, our least experienced position on the team, which is also why there's so much concern about it. But just a lot of unknown, man. A lot of unknown and a lot of wondering, hey, hopefully Will Smith is a fan favorite, right? And you know he would be. He would own our hearts if he was just, came out and was mauling people up front. And it would be quick. And it would be a big sigh of relief. But, man, I sure hope we see it for his sake, for everyone's sake. Defensive end, Kenyatta, Curry, Logan, and Bo, all very experienced players. Who knows what kind of rotation we're going to see there. I think Kenyatta is the clear number 1. Bo Atkinson and Caden Curry can both be very impactful guys. Logan George, from what we've seen from him in the run game, looks really nice so far. We only saw the spring game. CJ Hicks, a wild card, totally different style player, totally different skill set, yet to be determined how we're going to see him used. And behind them, you've got Dominic Kirks out of Paynesville, Zion Grady, the freshman out of Bama, Epi Satanile, Josh Mickens, no clue about Mickens. Haven't heard a thing about him other than he was injured during the spring, was wearing a leg brace. I don't know if we'll ever see Mickens on the field, but a wealth of experience on the end, not much in the middle. Moving to linebacker, this is future captain, future Blocko, Sonny Styles' room. Arvell Reese next to him with a ton of experience last year, and there is no battle for those 2 spots. What we thought in spring at the beginning might be a battle was Peyton Pierce, Riley Pettijohn. And it was clear when James came out and talked in spring that there was absolutely no battle for Peyton Pierce's role. He is the clear number 3. And man, excited for him. But after those three. You've got Riley Pettijohn, TJ Alford, Eli Lee. Those three will battle for some playing time. Riley, probably the odds-on favorite to get those snaps as the number 4. In the secondary, the most interesting room on the defense, maybe the most interesting room, I mean, all combined, it is the most interesting spot on the team. There's a lot of different scenarios. The good news is, like, they're all winning scenarios. There's a ton of talent. You got freshman Devin Sanchez, who's just phenomenal, been the topic of a ton of conversation this offseason, as he should be. If you asked AI to build the perfect cornerback, like physically and athletically, it would be Devin Sanchez. Of course, we've gotten to know him as a young man. And honestly, like, he's so mature and he just kind of has that attitude, that it factor that just reminds you of Kobe and Jordan. Like, not going to be denied. He just seems like that kind of guy, man. It's somewhat intimidating. But you look at the secondary with Jermaine Matthews, who I think is a really good shutdown corner. Davison Igbinosun, who I think is going to have a really good year. Your top 2 corners. Now, IGB elected not to go to the league. You got Lorenzo Styles at nickel. I think Davison's a really good player if you take away those penalties. I think everybody would love him if you took away those penalties. Is he on a short leash with those penalties? Does Matt Patricia change this equation at all? Are both of those cornerback spots truly locked up? Are either of those two too good that you can't take them off the field for Devin Sanchez? I don't think so. I think Devin Sanchez is too good to keep off the field. And out of IGB, Lorenzo Styles, Jermaine, I'm keeping Jermaine where he is. There's a lot of people who have talked about pulling Lorenzo Styles off, moving Jermaine Matthews to nickel. And I just don't think that Jermaine is good for nickel. I think you're taking away his strongest suit and putting him in a place where it's his weakest suit. I just don't like it at all. I think he'd be wasting his talent, and I think he's a great cover guy. But he is a dog. He would do it. He's definitely a dog. IGB, more physical, more natural for nickel to me, but does he want to do it? I don't know. Will he be better than Lorenzo? I would have thought so at the end of last season, but I feel like Lorenzo's improved quite a bit. He's been at a new position. I think he's getting better at it. He's a great athlete. I think that he could do a potentially really good job. Anyway, these guys are in for it because they got Sanchez, they got Aaron Scott breathing down their necks. And I think there is probably much more rotation than there was last year in this cornerback room. Going to be a whole lot because it's so competitive. At safety, you got the battle going on to see who is going to get to play next to Caleb Downs, a once a decade type player. Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain. It's an interesting one because at the end of the year last year, it looked like Jalen McClain would be the guy coming in this year as the odds-on favorite, but we came into spring with Malik Hartford as the guy running with the ones. Same in the spring game. It was Malik. Now, Malik, Ohio kid, top 100 kid coming out of high school in year 3, and he was a tall, skinny kid, but a thumper. Well, now he's put on some mass, and he looks good out there, man. He looks good out there. But to me, Jalen McClain just got that it factor, man. Jalen McClain just feels like a budding star to me. There's just something a little different about him. So I'm really interested in that one. I think they're both going to play quite a bit, but who's going to play more? I don't know. You also got freshman Fahim Delane, who is Ohio State's top of the board guy, their number 1 safety, and he's going to get some playing time as well. And that's it for the defense. So when we go over the offense and we go over the defense, on the defense, on the offense, experienced offensive line, not really any interesting battles. Wide receiver, experienced, 2 deep battle. Tight end, experienced, no battles. Running back, not too experienced, but 2 deep battles. Quarterback, no experience. Defensive end battles, but a lot of experience. Defensive tackle, 2 deep battle, but no experience. Linebacker, 2 deep battle, plenty of experience. Cornerback, battling to keep a freshman off the field, somewhat experienced. Safety, battle to play next to Downs, somewhat experienced. We just went through everything on the roster. To me, I think the people that are doubting this Ohio State Buckeyes roster, picking the Buckeyes to lose 2 or 3 games this year, picking the Buckeyes to lose to Texas, they're looking at everything Ohio State lost and picturing this roster thinking, yeah, there's talent. Of course, it's Ohio State, but they're going to need to get their bearings together and learn how to play together. And it's really 2026 that's the year to watch. I'll agree, 2026, the roster looks better. Just, you got second year Julian Sain as a starter. You got some more opportunities to build the interior of that defensive line. However, when we look at this roster, man, like these guys have all played football. They've all played football together. I think this boils down to what we've talked about forever since the season ended last year. Will the defensive line be good enough? Will there be enough depth? And will the quarterback be good? And I think that's really all it comes down to. Let's pretend the quarterback is good, and let's pretend the defensive line is average. An average defensive line and a good quarterback on this team with all the known quantities, absolutely a national championship title contender. And that's without factoring in the championship DNA, the top 3 head coach, the top 3 coaching staff in the country that's tight. These guys bring somebody in. They embrace them. These people love it and get acclimated so fast. We see it every time one of them comes in. We saw it with Locke last year. We saw it with Bowen and Patricia this year. Like they're just grinning ear to ear. They can't keep it off their face. This team is legit, man. Ohio State is going to beat Texas. They're going to beat Texas. And when they do, everybody's going to be singing a different tune about these Buckeyes and talking about them potentially repeating. There's a reason they're still tied for the best or number 2 odds in the country to win the national championship. All right, guys. So we're going to get to some of your comments in a few. I got one more segment here. I want to go over the new blue chip ratio, which just came out. Now, the blue chip ratio is just the percentage of 4 and 5 stars you have in your program in your previous 4 recruiting cycles. To win a national championship, you have needed just more blue chips than non-blue chips. So more 4 and 5s than anything else. And that's it. It's just a very baseline, simple, easy statistic to do. If you want to win a national championship, you got to be over 50%. Now I'm going to tell you why this statistic no longer near as important as it once was for programs like Ohio State at the top. But it is a pretty basic, easy thing just to kind of look and say, how many teams can win a national championship this year? Let's just look at the blue chip ratio. These 16 teams have the prerequisite talent to win a national championship. Now, Bud Elliott, who's the creator of this, and I think he created it in like 2011, he adds to his explanation in this year's about transfer portal players, because people will say, well, what about transfer portal players? So he says, including transfer portal rankings, who are transfer portal player rankings, who are on average lacking the upside of elite high school recruits, makes the ratings less accurate. If you look at the 2025 transfer class, it is lacking at the top. This, according to people in personnel, because teams are doing a better job of holding on to their talent. It looks like the window to even attempt to build through the portal is closing. Elite programs recruit high school level talent at a high level and use the portal to patch holes. I've been trying to say all this last year that the portal is getting nothing but weaker and weaker at the top. And your options are coming down. The portal class in 2025 showed us as much. It's going to continue to get weaker because now with revenue share, you've got even the smaller schools who maybe just have 1 or 2 primetime players that could go somewhere else, but don't have the NIL to pay him what it takes to keep him. This type of guy now, they can open up that revenue sharing and pay this kid. So that's even one less avenue of potential guys in the portal that we were seeing. You could always count on that. But this is a separate discussion. I just thought it was a good time to remind everybody whose immediate response every time we miss a recruiting target is the portal. It isn't that easy. And we've already established with this defensive tackle search that Ohio State was on in the spring portal that they're not the type of program that's going to play it shady and go pull somebody out of somewhere. So either they're on the list or we got no shot because they're not going to back channel it, which is fine. They play by the rules. I like it. It's integrity. Cool. I wouldn't be mad at them if they didn't, but integrity is a cool thing. I'm not ever going to root against it. But if we go back in history and look at all the national champions since 2011, the blue chip ratio, we can start with Alabama in 2011, 71, Alabama 71, Florida State 53, pretty low. 2014 Ohio State was 77. 2015 Bama 77. 2016 Clemson 52. 2017 Alabama 80%. 2018 Clemson got a little better. They got up to 61. 2019 LSU. What do they say about that team? 64%. 2020 Alabama 83%. 2021 Georgia 80%. 2022 Georgia 77%. 2023 Michigan, the second lowest, 54%. In 2024 Ohio State, the all-time record, 9 out of 10 players on the roster in the last 4 previous classes, blue chippers, for a 90% blue chip ratio, which is insane. And that's the team that won the national championship. Now, when we look at the net, let's say, all right, so if you've got how many guys on your team, and most teams will say they're shooting for 90 now. You're only really playing like 30 guys. So it's certainly possible to have a 54% blue chip ratio and still be starting as many blue chippers on your team as Ohio State, even if they have 90. Because if you've got a 54% blue chip ratio and you got 90 guys on your team, you got 50 guys. You're playing 30 guys. So you can still start a team that's just as good. You can have a couple of backups that are just as good. So it doesn't mean everything, but it is interesting to look at these numbers. As we roll into 2025, we have a tie at the top. Ohio State and Alabama, post Nick Saban, Alabama and Ohio State tied at 89. 89%. Just crazy, man. Georgia, they're number 3 at 84%. How about this one? Texas A&M, 82%. Now, you want to talk about underachieving. You have got Ohio State and Bama, then Georgia, then Texas A&M. Underneath Texas A&M, you got Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame. One of these things is not like the other, and it's Texas A&M, the single most underachieving program for what they have in modern college football. It's just unbelievable. I mean, you look at them this class, they're just killing it. I am stunned that they have an 82% in the last 4 classes. At any rate, Texas A&M, Oregon at 78, Texas at 78, Notre Dame 73, Oklahoma 70. Then we go to, there's the tops there. We go to Penn State at 68, Miami at 64, Florida at 64, Auburn at 64, a Big Ten tie, Michigan and USC both at 57, Clemson at 55, Tennessee 54, and Florida State 54. And that's it. Those are all the teams that have above a 50% blue chip ratio. And that's pretty wild. Biggest surprises on there for me, how fast Texas has been able to climb back up that board. Notre Dame at 73%, pretty damn sweet. Good job for them. But Texas A&M for sure, the biggest one. Now, looking at the Ohio State class this year, and I got to say, like, when we look at Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, which we all know kind of recruit on a different plane than most people, and the numbers back that up every year. What we're seeing out of all 3 of Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama this cycle is they are all 3 carrying more 3-stars in their class than they otherwise would have. If you look at Ohio State this year, right now, it's currently 75%. So 89 the past 4, this year 75 blue chip ratio. It's like there's 5 3-stars currently out of 20 guys. If you look at Alabama, 69%. So 89 in the past 4 cycles, currently at 69. I didn't do the math on Georgia, but as I've watched their class develop, I know they got a lot of 3-stars this year as well. And there are some people who are saying this is the spreading out of talent and they can't pay them. And I don't think that's it at all. I think it's strategic. I think it's totally strategic. I think for every one of those 4-stars they could have got a low end, or any one of those 3-stars, they could have got a low end 4-star if that was the goal, right? If the goal was the blue chip ratio, I think Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State could get 100% blue chip ratio if that was the specific goal. I do think it is the goal to add more developmental pieces that you think will stay with the team longer and that you think will be core guys who will who will come in and not want to change after 2 years and get out of there because they're not playing. In addition, you add a lot of home state guys that way too. Home state guys who might be developmental guys, they're even more or less likely to go. And I think it's the right move, but we will see that blue chip ratio start to inch down from the top, and it means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing. So that is everything I have got on that, guys. I do want to hit on some of your comments here. Looks like we got a super chat from our guy, Chris Lane, just because. Thank you so much, my man. Shout out to Gorgon. Gorky, been a member for 11 months. Sean, been a member for 6 months. Appreciate you guys. And all of you are free to join that membership on YouTube if you want. Unfortunately, I think it's got to be on a computer and it can't be on your phone. If it's on your phone for some reason, you are not allowed to join that, and I don't know why. Richie Dubs talking about Hero Canoe. Check this out, guys. So we talk about our interior, right? The interior of the defensive line. I was doing some research earlier today. Now, Richie Dubs is talking about Hero Canoe at Texas and not starting over Murad Watson. Murad Watson was the transfer from Syracuse who was a freshman all ACC kid, and Ohio State was trying to get in on him a bit on the spring portal. Texas paid a lot for him, and he was the 5th defensive tackle that they signed this portal class. But they actually needed him. They really only had like 4 dudes. But when we look at their guys here, Murad Watson at 6'3", 313. Cole Brevard, 6'3", 333. Travis Shaw, 6'5", 342. Then you got Hero, 6'4", 315. And they had Alex January, who is 6'5", 308. They are big, man. They are big. I'm happy that we got the interior offensive lineman we do. Really happy. I love that crew. Yeah, Drew. Texas does recruit the D-line extremely well, particularly last cycle and this cycle. Justice Terry as a freshman this year might be really fun to watch. Chris is still not happy that Colin Simmons won the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year award over Jeremiah Smith. Yeah, really good, man. Really good. And the fact that anybody could have even fathomed anybody winning that but Jeremiah Smith, it just blows my mind. I think sometimes people do this to overthink things and just go against the grain. Like, well, of course, Jeremiah would win it. I'm going to vote for this guy. Somehow you won, man. It's crazy. Jeremiah's about to be 2-0 against Colin Simmons. So there's that. Emily said, Texas's defense and our offensive line, I've heard we will get bullied, which I thought was odd because of all our guys coming back. I mean, they're talking about guys like Colin Simmons coming off the edge and guys in the interior, like I just read. And if you're just looking at that on paper, you know, that's a nasty Don, I tried, bro. Here's the deal, man. What I try to do is when I see somebody comment in the comment section, and when I tried, like I've done this 5 times, I did it 1 time. When I see someone comment in the comment section under one of my videos, and I'm going to go live soon, I'll be like, oh, I could use somebody to give me a hand in case one of these spammers comes on and they start spamming, or they're, nasty or rude or start swearing, to get them the hell out of there. And I look for people that I know and I'll just be like, okay, I'm going to do this and try to ding him and enter him in the thing. Now, more complicated than you would imagine for your boy here. There's not just like a button that says make this guy a mod. It's not how it works. You've got to go to the settings, and then I've got to go back to that person's name and like enter their name. And sometimes it'll search it, it'll pop up. Other times you got to like get their code or their channel or something and like copy and paste it. I tried to search Don B. No luck. But if you comment on the video, I can probably do it a little easier. Can probably do it. I swear I tried. I saw your comment the other night after. I usually go through afterwards and see if I missed anything. And I did. Again, second week in a row, I missed something. You know why? I get nervous here when I'm doing the comments. Everybody's looking at me. Lucia Buck is very excited for Coach P. I absolutely am. Cannot wait. One of my favorite hires, man. I just can't believe with everybody was so angry about that hire. I cannot wait for all of them to be like, yeah, boy, was I wrong. MCU Drew makes a great point here. In fact, most people scream for the younger player to play over the vets. We see that younger player play far worse in the future. The loyalty to upperclassmen is a fake narrative. Tons of freshmen and sophomores have earned playing time and started under Day. It's true. We have seen a lot. But most people do always love. Hey guys, in the comments section, I want to ask you something. I got a message from my brother that said the show was cutting out. Did it cut out for you? I don't know when. Let me see when he sent this message. That was 10 minutes into it. So if anybody was watching earlier on in the show, was the show cutting out for you? Sean believes Ohio State and Michigan need each other. I will never be the guy who says I need Michigan. I'll tell you that. But I get your point. Who cares what other teams have? Ohio State is about to surprise a lot of people. They aren't ready. I totally agree. Hey, little boy, thank you. Appreciate you for joining. Terry, there's our buddy Terry. Terry says he's excited to hear CJ Hicks giving Epi Satanile and Zion Grady props for saying that they're going to be dogs. Our defense will surprise the ESPN doubters. That was a fun clip to watch for anybody who didn't see it. It's been spreading around Twitter. CJ Hicks was on with Bobby Carpenter, and Anthony Schlegel asked him, name two guys who are just, I don't know, jumping off the page or impressing you or whatever. And he immediately said Epi Satanile, which is big news that was just lickety split like that. And then he added in Zion Grady. Now, Ryan Day already mentioned Zion Grady. This is the first we've heard somebody kind of shout out Epi like that, and it was on the tip of his tongue. Not calculated, didn't know it was coming. That carries some weight. I like that. Oh, How Do Darren says, I wonder how Georgia fans feel losing 2 5-stars to Texas. I would be livid. Well, the defensive tackle that they lost, JJ, who is ranked like the #1 defensive tackle in the country, they actually just got, Georgia I'm talking, just got crystal balled for Valdin Soni, who came up to camp at Ohio State and, in my opinion, is actually better than the one that Texas just paid a boatload of money for. I think that the one that is the #1 guy that they just lost, the 5-star to Texas, is maybe a tick, and I just mean a tick better than Damari Simeon. I mean, they're almost spot on. Not incredibly impressive. Probably one of the least impressive #1 defensive linemen I've seen in a long time. So I think they're actually going to come out in a positive way, having not spent the money for him. In addition, Tyler Atkinson, man, while I think he's just a ridiculous talent and he's a hard worker, I don't know, man. Just a little too much. It's just a little too much for me. Now, granted, I take him. Yeah. but there's a lot there. A lot of ancillary brand and everything's something different. What's up, Cookie Monster? Did you guys answer me? Did it cut out for you after 10 minutes? Anybody? Yeah, Kirby's going to love to try to get them 3 times in a row. Oh, Willie said it cut out a couple of times. Damn it. It cut out only for a few seconds for me early in the show. Didn't cut out for, okay, hasn't cut out for Richie. I cut out Don's heart. Don, I just explained to you. All right, Goombas. I appreciate you guys for joining me. We are now at 1 hour and 2 minutes. So unless anybody has, it went black for a few for Doreen. Ryan Day was very enthusiastic this morning when asked about Matt P. You can tell he's very excited about what he's implementing. I have no doubt. And I also think that this whole notion that Matt P is coming in to run the Knowles defense, which is now just the Ohio State defense, is not going to be what we see. Because even if Ryan Day, that was his intention, the more he's around Matt Patricia, the more he realizes, man, this dude's pretty special. And the more the guys get excited and the more he's going to implement. So I think that's the way it's going to go. And I could not be more excited about it. I am really big on this Matt Patricia hire. Love it. And Brian Hartline has never failed at anything. And I am so sick of hearing people say, like, you got to, I mean, not a lot of people, but I've had several people in my comments when I bring up Hartline say, like, the guy failed 2 years ago. What makes you think it's going to be any different? He didn't fail. He didn't get an opportunity. Now, maybe he wasn't ready for the opportunity, but he didn't fail. We didn't see him in the box calling plays. It didn't happen. I think it had just as much to do with Ryan Day not being ready to give it up as it did with him not being ready to take it over. That's my thoughts on it. Mark says, Paul Feinbaum will be mad if he ever saw a great show like JUCK's. Everyone be safe and have a blessed day. We will end on that. Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate you guys. I will talk to you soon. Don't forget tomorrow, 5 o'clock, Quen Guilford's decision. Be there or be square. JUCK and Bucks out.